Welcome to Northlandia, a place to bring you curiosity because here you'll find curiosities. I'm Wyatt, Buckner of the Duluth News Tribune, and I will be your guide as we discover the unique and fascinating stories here in the Northland. Here we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. In this episode, we meet the creatives behind PBS North's quirky historical YouTube series, Minnesota Historia. Let's venture forth into Northlandia.
My name is Hailey, your guide to all things quirky in Minnesota's past. Your guide to the Superior Shipwreck, the legend of St. Urho, ancient agates, the Root Beer Lady, the Chief Buffalo Memorial Project, and to the history of Duluth's doomed Winter Olympics.
We need a time machine would be great. Yes, I would like a time machine myself.
That was just a small taste of the strange and interesting historical topics covered in Minnesota Historia. Joining me to talk about the show are the creatives from in front and behind the camera, with producer Mike Scholtz and the guide herself, Hailey Eidenschink, also known as History Hailey.
Hi. Hello.
Welcome to the Northlandia podcast, guys.
Thank you for having us.
I forgot to say hello when you said my name. Hello.
Also helping me on this journey is Northlandia reporter Jimmy Lovrien. Jimmy, welcome back. This time you're here to help me co-host.
I am. Thank you, Wyatt. And it's good to be with our, somewhat related, similar topic, similarly named Historia folks. I've borrowed on 2 occasions some ideas that I got from their show. So I'm glad we can be here talking.
That's why I dragged you here to be a co-host, because you're the one who introduced me to Historia through those articles that we've done, like the Underground Movie Theater, I think was the first one where it came up. You actually showed me excerpt from an episode while we were recording it. That wasn't an admission to the podcast episode. We did pause it to watch that clip. So that was kind of my introduction. That kind of spurred me to watch the series.
Yeah, I'm delighted that we're like sister enterprises in the media landscape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
uncovering the weird.
Yeah, it felt good to know that it didn't seem like you felt like we were rivals. We didn't feel like we were rivals because you were sharing our articles, and I think you even commented on when I shared our episode of the Underground Movie Theater. You said, "Oh, let's go on a joint venture and stuff," like we had talked about in that episode. So I think there's a little bit of a friendly competition there in a sense, but also again we are 2 different mediums and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's truly sibling because I love you. I love what you do. I've listened to every episode, a couple of them twice. Aww. But also, when I see you break a historical story that I had never heard of, I get so mad. And then I love you again.
I mean, we won't stop you from covering it yourself as well. We borrowed a little bit from you. You can borrow from us.
Yeah, I think that'll happen. I think that'll happen sometime. I mean, eventually, are we ever going to run out of weird, untold stories?
Not in this region.
I don't think so. Because I feel like new weird history is being created every day. So I think we'll just find something new, I
think that's true, yeah.
So I guess give us a brief summary maybe of what is the show exactly, kind of in a nutshell, and then maybe how it all came together.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back into the before times, before we had the pandemic. That was when Hailey and I worked on a project at the Depot, just a series of videos about kind of quirky history at the Depot. Yeah, and shortly after that, and we liked working together.
I would say so. It did not end in flames, no.
Yeah, okay. We'll see.
Let the record state.
We'll see. And so shortly after that, the PBS said, well, we'd like to do a historical series that goes out on digital first, YouTube first, about quirky and untold stories, historical stories in Minnesota. And so Hailey and I were like, ooh, We've been practicing at this, so we submitted a proposal and it was accepted. And so we have been making a series of 10-minute documentaries for PBS about just what I said, quirky, untold stories of the area's history.
Mm-hmm. And from the beginning, was Hailey always going to be the host? Was that kind of the idea?
Was I always supposed to be the host?
It was always you, Hailey. There was never anyone else.
Oh, good. Okay.
and so Hailey, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're History Hailey and how you fit into this project.
Right. So, like Mike mentioned, met doing Depot video stuff. And I've been at the Depot in some way. The St. Louis County Depot, located in downtown Duluth, 506 West Michigan Street. 1892 train station that's now a mixed-use cultural heritage and arts center. And I've been there in some way, shape, or form since like 2018. I somehow managed to make my way over to a position and was volunteered to be the face of like marketing material. But I do like tour stuff. So in my tour research, I was digging into building history. And the stuff that's always kind of stood out to me is the weird, off-kilter, strange stuff. And I have a disaster of a desktop at work, but have been like holding on to weird little Duluth tidbits for a long time. And when Mike suggested that we do this like Historia thing, I was like, oh, good. I have lots of documents ready to share.
When you pick a topic, I mean, what's the Historia vibe, and what do you, when you're down a rabbit hole, what do you think? Hey, this is it. This is going to be an episode.
Yeah, I think like when we pitched this to PBS, part of the pitch was you have to give us a lot of story ideas. Like, tell us what you're thinking, and that was kind of how I think that's how they judged. Like, do we like this, team's story ideas? So the first story I pitched was the time that Duluth almost got the Winter. Well, they didn't really almost get the Winter Olympics. They made one of those bids for the Winter Olympics, which I've always thought is such a weird, why, how we don't have enough hills, do we? Right. So we did some research and found out you didn't need hills back then to do the Winter Olympics, and a lot of the, some of the places where events would have happened was still, they were either still standing, or a part of them was still standing in the Plaza Super One, and so there was enough that we thought we could go around and get some good B-roll for that. And so kind of explain how we would do that. And they were like, yeah, that sounds like a wacky story. Let's go for it.
So how do you even find out about stories like that? Because that's something I've always been curious about, including with our Northlandia reporters. Because as a digital producer, I help out with the photos, video, podcast. But for the most part, I don't really do much of the finding of the story. So oftentimes, how did you even find out about this? Where did you even go?
Yeah, how do you find out about stuff?
Well, I live in a archive. I'm either online on digital archives or physically digging through archival material, doing depot research, and I have ADHD, and I'm very easily distracted by whatever catches my whim, my fancy at that moment in time. So I follow lots of rabbits down rabbit holes, and that's where I guess come across stuff if I'm not hearing it in passing from somebody. At this point now, I think because we've now 3 seasons of Historia, I think folks approach us with weird things. They're like, did you know about this? But when I'm coming across something completely new to me, it's almost always coming from archive material. Mike?
Yeah. I feel like I've known it always. It's in my being. It's in the fiber of my being. I hear these stuff. I grew up in Fargo Moorhead, and living there is very boring. And I think...
Don't tell our parent company that. That's where they're based out of.
Believe me, they know how boring it is in Fargo. I think people spend most of their time napping and eating and sleeping. So growing up, I was always, sort of looking at other parts of the state, other more interesting parts of the state, and reading a lot of history. And then I moved here about 20 years ago.
What are some rabbit holes you've gone down that haven't made the cut?
Are you looking for story ideas? You have to tell us.
We might borrow some. But I'm curious as to if you've spent a lot of time on something and then you just decided a 10-minute episode either isn't enough or is too much.
Mm-hmm. There's one that may eventually be an episode, if there are future seasons. But I talked to Terry Caddo about the Voyager statues. And I think it's an interesting story, and I've even got video of all the Voyager statues in Minnesota that I could find. I'm just kind of looking for another sort of twist to the story or something else to it to make it, to flesh it out more as an episode. So that's kind of one I've just been sitting on for forever. Is how to do. I don't really want to do my top 5 favorite Voyager statues.
Number 5.
You did that with the shipwrecks, so
we did it with the shipwrecks.
Famously, the most beloved episode.
Is it really?
It's Hailey's most beloved.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I found it really hard to write to get the tone right. Like it's like we're supposed to be like quirky and untold stories.
Sure.
So I'm like, well, everyone knows about the Edmund Fitzgerald, but there are so many great shipwrecks. And so these are untold stories of shipwrecks, but we're also supposed to be sort of quirky. And shipwrecks are, sad.
Right.
Often. So sometimes the sort of two heads of the beast that is Minnesota Historia, quirky and untold, I don't always feel like they match up.
That's some good juxtaposition. I feel like that happens at the Northlandia a couple times. I think a good example of that was our recent episode Terry did on Monkey Island, and like how it's obviously quirky what happened there, but then the whole situation, but then like the monkeys had like died, so that's not really a fun aspect of the story.
Nothing
but
fun about a bunch of dead monkeys.
no, not at all. So I imagine it's kind of similar with you guys as well, where you're trying to do this quirky storytelling, but there's some a little heavy stuff in there every once in a while.
Yeah, and it's like when you're producing an episode like that, you can have gallows humor about that because we're just humans and sometimes we laugh at really inappropriate things. But then we have to put this out on PBS's, YouTube page. So I want to, be somewhat sensitive to some of this stuff. So it's tricky.
Hailey, one of the ideas I stole from you is when you tweeted a picture of a cow moose hybrid, like a, and I know cows are female moose, but I'm talking like dairy cow,
A Holstein.
moose, yes, hybrid allegedly up in the Observation Hill neighborhood, which is above what's now.
Is that one of your?
Point Rocks.
I think that was one of your pre-podcast columns that you did.
It was early Northlandia, and you had tweeted a photo of it, and I looked it up because it was in our archives, the decades that are thankfully digitized. And so I was searching all sorts of things and kind of found a few other similar things. And then there was also a hybrid. I think it was a Kiwanis club made up of hybrid of a lot of animals, and it was like the paper was promoting the Kiwanis annual meeting with it, but never acknowledged that it was fake. They were like, our artist went out in the woods north of wherever and found this sloth, moose, kangaroo. I don't know what all the other ones are. Anyway, we thankfully, as I saw that and we talked about it, but I'm wondering if how you found that cow moose hybrid, what you were searching in the archives to find that, because I searched a lot of weird things to get it. But what did you do to get that to pop up?
So I stumbled across it initially. I was looking for something definitely work-related, and I saw something shiny. I think the headline was like, calf freak born in Duluth.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, go on. And like you, I think I was just like enchanted by the story. And I called my friend who has a biology degree because I do not have one. I don't understand how science works, period. I was like, this doesn't seem like it could be real. So I called Claire, and she got to the bottom of it for me. She's like, no, this isn't real. But then I got curious about if there was more and more of these. And it pops up. Pops up in Duluth. Like, the whole moose hybrid thing continues to happen in Duluth, like, newspaper archives. And there's just, like, a weird energy around the way that moose are talked about in general that I've not been able to, like, pin down. So, I don't really know what's up with that, but it's very interesting.
And the way that newspapers at that time propagated or, like, entertained the idea that that could be a real thing was really odd. I mean, that was 100 years ago, I think, or more now. And that was like a thing newspapers did, was like, there's this weird looking animal born south of wherever. We got a description of it. Is it real? You know, they didn't really actually care if it was or not. It was just kind of like clickbait at that time. And it was just odd that that was like a thing newspapers did. The other thing is Googling it, you know, there are still people who are
there are truthers
website. Yes,
out there.
exactly. of I forgot what they call it, but, you know, like hybrids that geneticists don't think can exist, but they do, you know.
Big science is keeping the moose cow hybrid from us.
Yeah, Hailey shared that with me a long time ago, and it actually ended up inspiring an episode that we did. But then the moose cow hybrid didn't make the episode. Yeah, it was Mr. Magoo the mongoose and other animals in wrong places.
I mean, I enjoyed that episode quite a lot.
It could have been a lot longer because we could have spent 5 minutes talking about cow moose hybrids and other hybrids.
There's still time.
We may come back to that for sure.
Okay, I think this you have a reoccurring character in your series, someone in a bear costume.
We do. We sure do.
What's that about?
I want to know about where the bear costume came from, and I just want to know more.
Very practical reason for the first bear appearance in that pilot episode, if we can call it that, of the doomed Winter Olympic bid of Duluth.
Right.
There's an aside about the Hotel Duluth, where a black bear made its way through a glass window of the hotel and wreaked some havoc on the buffet. So, Mike.
Yeah. So I bought a bear suit.
Where? Online or?
Yeah, I just got it, on Amazon.
Yeah.
And, it came and it was really small. So the person who was going to wear it was actually picking some kids up from school. And so I kept trying it on smaller and smaller people. And the suit finally fit Gigi Calland. She was just in The Sound of Music.
Okay.
So she's an actor in town, but she's also she was 10 at the time we hired her. I have since purchased a slightly larger bear suit. And so she's still the bear. But to answer your question, which I'm not doing, we just keep finding stories with bears because we're in Duluth. Every story has a bear element. We talked about the bear that almost started World War III. We talked about that in the Mr. Magoo the Mongoose episode because, of course you would. And, in this coming up season, we have an episode about a lost circus train that may be at the bottom of a lake in Pine City, but it's not. It's like one of these urban legends. Sure. So it's kind of, the episode's more about how this urban legend propagated. But one of the aspects of the urban legend is that the circus animals sort of mutinied and took over the train and caused it to go into the lake.
I understand how trains function.
Yeah.
You can just walk into the engine room at any time, right? You just...
Well, so you probably haven't seen this footage. We dramatized that, how a bear would sort of pop up and take over the train. So,
wow.
Did the depot use the depot for that, or
we did?
Yeah,
we used the Malley.
That's awesome. Friends of the Lake Superior Railroad Museum were able to get us in there.
Yeah, it's a train you're allowed to go in. So, yeah. We the bear pretended to commandeer it. A lot of what we do is just playtime. I realize it sounds like now that we're saying it out loud.
Yeah, and as you're talking about that, it kind of leads into my next question a little bit. Just kind of walk us through, what does the process of producing an episode kind of look like in terms of coming up with the idea, pursuing it, learning the historical information for it, shooting it? Some of them are have you going to the St. Urho's parade or other areas, doing interviews, talking with people. Then you're later having, I'm assuming, Hailey record in studio, the actual scripted things you write out.
Yeah. And
then you have the visual aspects, the gags of sorts that you kind of work into the stories. How does that all? Just walk us through the process of that.
Yeah, you explained it very well. It's Hailey. Is a lot of the times talking at the camera and telling funny jokes and making funny expressions, and that's kind of the spine of the whole episode. And then we're supposed to be a fast-paced YouTube series. That's part of the original goal, was to make it very fast-paced. So we can't just have Hailey for 10 minutes. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So then I specifically look for stories that are going to have a lot of visual elements, like St. Urho's is a great example because they do a parade. Right. So if I can go out and shoot a parade and use a bunch of parade footage, like the Smelt Parade, we did an episode on the history of smelting because there's a parade. I mean, we'll probably get around to every parade-based historical...
So if you want a Historia episode, start a parade now.
Please. But then the bear, having Gigi in a bear suit is just another example of, this is just going to be a funny visual. This season, we're turning Hailey into an 8-bit animated Mario the Plumber type character to help us tell the story of Alexander Miles, who was, besides being the richest black man in the entire Midwest at one time, he also invented automatic elevator doors. And he did a bunch of other great stuff in Duluth.
Well, being a barber, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And he was a barber.
Didn't you touch on that one a little bit with the patent store episode?
We
touched on it briefly in the podcast.
We chose to go with our inventions list were nipple enhancers, invented by by Duluthian. Gino Paolucci had a golf guide glove.
Yes.
And then there was another, pizza rolls.
And then the
the
cow on skates.
Cow on skates. There's a
Yes.
Is
patent.
that the name of the invention?
It was it was something like Mechanical Beast or something, but he wanted
The image was a cow.
Yeah. So I'll have to show you, but like, you know how like the cartoon horse, was one person in front, another person in the back.
Right.
Well, he had an idea to solve that by having like a harness where it would, the front legs would be, your arms, hind legs would be your legs, and it could be on ice. So the patent is written with all four limbs on skates.
It doesn't look that safe, to be perfectly honest.
And so many applications.
Yes.
Yeah.
For that invention.
But it was in that episode, though, we mentioned about, what was some
Yes.
other patents that you found that were interesting that you couldn't quite include in the article. And
Right.
that's kind of how you...
Yeah. But anyway, so I interrupted, but 8-bit Hailey,
Yes.
Mario Hailey demonstrating how an elevator...
Well, how an elevator could kill you. Because
right.
Mario would often fall down, the elevator shaft because there's
What on
there's
earth?
no doors, in Donkey Kong or a lot of those games.
Their universe didn't have
No.
Alexander Miles.
And that could have been, yes, exactly. It was like an alternate universe. We really like exploring alternate universes.
I'm fascinated by how you guys come up with these creative things. Like, I was talking with Hailey prior to recording this about the episode you guys did on the alien encounter.
The UFO
Yeah.
that crashed into a car in
Yeah,
Oregon.
and you made a joke about, we blew the budget on these glorious maps, and then like for the rest of the episode, all your visuals were like taking a toy car and ramming it into like a glowing ball. Like I was like, what on earth? Like, how does your brain come up with that? I was like, let's do that for the visual. Like that sounds great. I'm fascinated.
I do watch a lot of movies. And so
Sure.
like, the idea for the toy car just running into a light and that's, demonstrating how a UFO and a sheriff's car crashed. Like, I think that just came from Ant-Man.
I was just thinking Ant-Man.
It's
Yeah,
like
with the
when
sound of the tank engine.
Yes, exactly. When they're having this, great battle and you expect this epic thing and then they just cut to two toys ramming into each other. I just think that's the funniest thing ever. So I think that's where that came from. And also, I do like to point out how nice the maps are. I do blow a lot of money on these antique maps that we keep using.
Historia, I think, is an excuse for you to keep buying antique maps.
Yeah.
Are they old classroom maps?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. They're the kind of maps that used to roll down in
Hope
front
they
of
stuck.
the chalkboard. Yeah, and I'm not gonna. I don't think the maps that I buy are inspiring any episodes directly, but they could. I just bought a map of Greece that I'm trying to figure out how to get that. I mean, there's a lot of Greek immigrants.
Yeah, we get the taste of Greece. in Duluth.
Yeah, someday. Maybe someday. I don't know if I actually answer your question, but this does it makes me think I should bring out the props I brought.
Yes.
Because when we were talking about the 8-bit Hailey, well, here, I'm just gonna lay a suitcase in the middle of the table.
All right, we've got an old-fashioned 1960s
I think it's 60s era.
blue. Yeah, powder blue.
Just open it. Open it up. This is another example of how we will go to any lengths to find a way to sort of illustrate a story.
I'm
in
opening
kind of a
the box.
funny
Oh!
way.
We will do our best to describe this as best as possible. What on earth?
It's a puppet.
It's
you like to-
It's a puppet version of Hailey.
With spaghetti hair.
I'm gonna paint the eyeballs to match her eyes, and this is a sweater that we already shot. We already shot the episode about the Duke of Duluth, and so these are the clothes she wears in that episode.
Got it.
So the Duke of Duluth is a 1905 Broadway musical, actually played on Broadway, only 48 shows, and Hailey actually told me about this one. She's been researching this for months, talking to the New York Public Library, getting trying to get the old playbills or at least old reviews and that kind of stuff. You got from the Library of Congress the sheet music from the Duke of Duluth.
Oh,
We want to do an episode on the Duke of Duluth.
yeah.
We do not want to stage an entire Broadway musical with dozens and dozens of actors.
So
What do
many
you
chorus
mean?
girls.
Well, It's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to spend money on maps. I can't spend money
On anything else.
staging a Broadway musical. So Steve Ash, who's our videographer, he came up with the idea, let's do a Broadway musical as a puppet show. So we're going to tell the story through puppets. I'm just going to bring out some more puppets. You can get photos of these later.
So this is just a case full of puppets and props for this show right here.
Yeah, this is the Duke of Duluth, which I can share this photo with you later. And so the story of the Duke of Duluth, the musical is...
If you're not already familiar.
Right.
It's one of those 48 shows.
No, I was waiting for it to be on Disney Plus, the live recording or something.
Yeah, no movie.
Pro shot.
The Duke of Duluth is he's like an unhoused person who lives in Duluth, I think, and he goes down to the docks to take a nap, and he climbs into a submarine.
Like you do.
Like you do.
This is yellow, but...
Yeah, I made a yellow puppet submarine because all submarines are yellow now, I think. And he falls asleep, and he wakes up in the land of Watt, which as far as I can tell is like sort of a Land of Oz type situation.
Okay.
And they declare him the Duke of Duluth, and then there's a lot of singing with chorus girls and such after that. And we decided the best way to do that would be as a puppet show.
Nice.
However, we are also going to hire Cal Metz of the Lyric Opera of the North. He's going to do 2 songs. He's going to do 2 numbers dressed as the Duke of Duluth, holding the Duke's giant axe. And so there'll be a little music in it.
And based off, or right off the original
The
sheet
sheet music
Got
from
it.
the show.
Right on.
I think we're going to have to share this one with Jay when it comes out.
Yeah, we promise we won't scoop you on this, but it's awesome. This is...
Well, good luck trying to scoop us.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a
nothing
little...
online.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
No, I'm saying that I think Jay would enjoy watching
yes.
it, just from a pure enjoyment perspective.
Right.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about this episode. Yeah. Oh, so this puppet Hailey, which I just sprung on Hailey.
Didn't come with bangs, did it?
I had to cut the hair.
Yeah.
And you, Hailey,
Like the limp head.
I was going to say...
Haley, your puppet has some balding problems.
But that could be cool. I mean, that's like a shaved side
like
of the
a
head kind of
monk
thing.
do, like a friar.
Yeah. So occasionally during this episode, puppets or Hailey is just going to turn into a puppet, and that's
Of course.
the episode. I mean,
Where did the sweater come from?
oh, my friend Jen Clander knit. This.
Oh my gosh.
This is based on your actual outfit from
it
the
looks
episode.
like
That's awesome.
so where did you get a sweater like that? It was custom made.
Yeah, this is a custom-made sweater. We will spare no expense. That was just a favor from a friend, but we will spare.
If that's the expense.
I have to. You don't want to be a friend of mine because I have to ask all my friends for the most ridiculous favors.
Is the music any good? Is it?
Well, some of the reviews that were shared and saved by the New York Public Archive, or the Theater Archive, they say that the music is one of the, I wouldn't say saving graces of the show.
Yeah. So Cal has been studying the music. He's gonna sing it for us soon. He likes it.
Okay.
I think he thinks it's kind of funny for 1905.
Sure.
Let's say.
Sure.
Yeah,
Different time,
I'm
different
sure
time.
it's qualified, but yeah, Cal Metz is fascinating. He just did a concert of the oldest music known in the Western world. He did it at Holy Rosary just a couple months ago, where he and a few other people performed like 1,000-year-old music. I don't exactly know the exact number. So he's kind of a music nerd, and I love him. And he's gonna drop a little knowledge on this episode also for us.
On it. Well, we've kind of touched on this already, but I mean, what have been some favorite moments of the first 2 seasons? Or give us, we've given us plenty of sneak peeks into season 3 here, but what have been some favorite moments for you all when you're out filming or things that have made the show? I guess I'm wondering, I know I can share mine, and that's the kid at the St. Urho Day Parade who says she loves the parade so much that she said, quote, "Even when my family's dead, I'll still go here."
Yeah.
That was my favorite moment. I think we were dying over that when we watched it.
Yeah.
Well, you showed me just that one line out of context, and then followed by Hailey's reaction, which just makes it even better.
Right.
Then later, when I actually watched the full episode, how you guys keep coming back to that is brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me on a person on the street interview type situation. So yeah, that's a good one.
But yeah, your each of your favorite moments.
It's so hard to choose. We've already alluded to it, but I really like the shipwreck episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think like my own personal brand of humor like lives right in that. Oh, this is too sad. We shouldn't be joking about this. I think that's like what I find so fun. But I really like the bit where I'm like reading out the message in the bottle that was found of someone saying like, oh, if you find this, please tell my parents I'm dead. And it's fake. It's a fake message from what Mike was telling me. It's like people are pretty sure that it's a hoax, so it's okay for me to think it's funny. Probably, maybe.
Yeah.
I like the feel of that one. I think it's definitely off kilter.
Quirky. Yeah.
Quirky.
Yeah. I think my favorite one from last season was the Boomtown episode, where we found a historian from Eveleth, Tucker Nelson. Is that the former Fox News? I always get these names confused.
Tucker
Carlson is the guy.
Yeah,
You're thinking of Carlson. Very, very different.
Tucker Nelson
Unrelated.
is the historian. And what I love about Tucker is he's like 26 years old, but he has the countenance of like a 90-year-old
He's
man.
only 26?
He was like grown in a lab somewhere.
What?
I love Tucker. He's so much fun to talk to, and
It is so fun to talk to. And
it's a Captain America kind of thing, like a man out of time.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I feel bad. Like, Tucker, if you're listening to this, I'm not making fun of you. I love you, and I want to do another episode with you.
Best.
But he sort of took us around town and showed us all the times Eveleth blew up in its history, which was a lot. It actually blew up twice.
Literally blown up.
One night. Yeah, blew up. Mining towns are dangerous, and Eveleth has been particularly dangerous. It blew up. The depot blew up in an attempted robbery, and then like a couple hours later, someone tried to burn down the jail. From inside of it, they tried to burn it down. They were a prisoner. And so Eveleth always has a lot going on. I love Eveleth.
we borrowed from that episode that you mentioned the underground theater down in that one of those mines under Eveleth. And so I liked that. That was a kind of a portion of the episode, and so I was like, I think I want to dig deeper into this, and was able to find some cool archival stuff that I'm sure you guys came across as well. But that it would show mostly safety films, but also comedies, and there was like a Spruce Mine band I kept coming across that would perform down there. So a lot of accordion.
Yeah, I like to think that Minnesota is a really weird state. And then the Northland, where we tend to do a lot of our stories, is kind of concentrated weirdness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I think Eveleth is the weirdest place.
It's like the epicenter of it.
There's a clown band.
Oh yeah. We did an episode.
Yeah, Terry did that one.
Story on them.
And then you did an episode on the polka mass, which started in Eveleth. And then, it keeps blowing up. The hockey stick.
I was going to say the
world's
hockey
largest
stick.
hockey stick. I did a documentary a few years ago about a guy who grew up in Eveleth who his sort of second job, he moonlights as a professional wrestler in Japan. And his shtick is that he eats human babies. And, because wrestlers got to have shticks. But
Is he the heel?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's bad. That's considered bad form.
I just wanted to make sure.
Eat children, and so and he grew up in Eveleth, lives in Duluth, but that's kind of his moonlighting gig. So there's just a lot of weirdness coming out of Eveleth.
And I know we had mentioned in that episode that we had done on the underground theater. If there's ever an opportunity to do a joint venture, like get underneath there somehow, I'm sure it's all underwater, but like if there ever was an opportunity, I feel like we should compile our resources, maybe buy one less map, and then we can find the money to go down there.
I can try to buy one less map.
Can lead an expedition down there. Yeah, let's.
Yeah. Yeah, I asked Tucker, like, well, how close can we get to where it was? He's like, well, I don't think you can get very close to it, but we don't know exactly you know, which shaft or where it was because, you know, mining changes the geography so much that it's kind of hard to tell where stuff was. Right. So it's going to be a tough one. Yeah. I have breaking news about one of your old episodes.
Okay.
Oh.
Are you ready for this?
I'm sitting down.
a little scared, but sure.
I think so.
It's the McKinley Monument in Tower.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if this is breaking. Can you have breaking news in like a historical story?
If you don't know about it, then yeah.
It's the nation's, or probably the world's first monument to the assassinated President William McKinley. Okay.
Yeah. And then, you know, we learned from your reporting in that episode that there was apparently a mining executive in Tower who, I don't know if he was friends with him or if he just admired him.
There were a lot of connections, but I couldn't figure out which one it was. But yeah. And so he was the one who suggested they build the first monument after McKinley was assassinated. So I was at the Ordine Foundation's 90th birthday last week. And I wrote a cartoon that Brian Barber animated that they showed at this celebration. There was another video where they talked about how Louise Ordine was good friends with McKinley's family. And McKinley asked Albert Ordine, you know, of Duluth, of the Ordine Foundation, to be his treasury secretary. And he said no, because he wanted to, you know, hang out in Duluth and build a good community here. So I had never heard that connection. They were apparently very close. So this like kind of opens up, maybe there were more connections to the Northland that McKinley had than we knew about. Yeah, Tower's namesake was one of them, Charlemagne Tower.
Yep.
Who's I think his son served as like an ambassador in McKinley's administration. Or something like that. And then there were also mining executives who had been from Ohio, like McKinley, and then made their way to the range because, you know, there are still steel plants down there. And so they worked their way up to the source of, you know, the iron and steel. There were a lot of connections, but I wasn't familiar with the Ordine one. So
yeah, I had not heard that until last week. And it was specifically his wife, Louise, who was like really close friends with the McKinleys.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. So maybe it's probably a group effort then, maybe at this point, just enough of a connection that they felt like they needed to do something quick.
Well, and Albert Ordine was a banker, so perhaps he was close with the mining executive. I mean, in Tower, I don't know.
Interesting.
Do you think this will be a Minnesota Story episode at some point?
I mean, I really love that episode on the McKinley Monument because I have driven by that obelisk like many times. I just had no idea what that was.
That's kind of like the general shtick of a lot of Northlandia is like the thing you drive by, you're like, what on earth is that? Like the weird, drive off the road a little bit and just kind of venture a little bit.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. It's right in the front lawn of Benchwarmers Bar and Grill or in Tower. It's like the first thing you see.
Well, and then there's that bizarre ice house in Tower that I want to know more about. That just giant concrete building that's been a bar over the years, but it kind of looks more like like a set from The Walking Dead. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's just
it's not the art deck. It's not the
I'll
City
be honest.
Hall
I've never
bar,
I've never actually stopped in Tower. I've only driven through Tower in that area. So
yeah, this is like a block or two off the main drag, and it used to be called the Ice House, and it's like and I don't know. I think maybe it used to be an ice house. It's got like 3-foot thick concrete walls. I want to know more about this place.
I get a kick out of their City Hall, which is on one side like an Art Deco, City Hall, and just, what you'd expect. And then 90 degrees, you're looking at it on the other side. And I think it must have started out as their, city liquor store, but I think there's a bar too. And so it's like, you can go, pay your sewer bill or taxes or whatever in one door, and then you go over and you can go have a drink.
One-stop shop. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's I don't know how that came to be, but my thought is it probably started as the city liquor store.
Yeah. You can see why growing up in Fargo-Moorhead, I would look over here and just be like, wow, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird over here.
All right. Well, last question I want to ask before we wrap it up here. You already kind of touched on this a little bit about how, obviously, your series is about the state as a whole, but a lot of your stories are kind of Northland-centric and kind of describes like an epicenter of like weirdness. But like, what is it you think that kind of makes the Northland like a special place historically to find all these weird stories and everything, you know?
Yeah. Do you have a good theory
I
on
have
this?
a take, but
Yeah.
so with like boomtown kind of stuff, there's a lot of money that folks think that there's to be made up here. So it's people who are willing to make big swings, take big risks, try the crazy stuff in order to make a life for themselves up here. It's kind of like cosmopolitan cities that are happening up here in the middle of the woods of people who are willing to swing for the fences. And I think it kind of creates a perfect storm of people hanging out in the woods, talking to the moose.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's
Yeah, that you kind of echoed something accidentally that Vida Zapancic told me once. She runs the Northern Lights Music Festival. They do an opera on the Iron Range every year, and I did a documentary a couple of years ago called Iron Opera about that. And she said people laugh when she will like tell funders and people in New York that the Iron Range is a cosmopolitan place.
yeah.
But
It
it-
very, very much is.
But it is, and it's this really unique mix of immigrants coming over for mining, but you've also got this really strong Ojibwe community still up here, and there's just a really fascinating mix of people, I think, here and up north.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a long way around of saying I don't really know though.
There are plenty of weird stories to keep all of us here going for a while, I think.
You guys have done 3 seasons now, and we're approaching 1 year of the podcast now. And even prior to that with the column, the stories keep coming, keep being discovered.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. And right before we wrap it up here, is just where can people find more about your show?
Yep. I would say go to PBS North's YouTube channel. There's a little tab there of Minnesota Historia. I think it's broken apart into the different seasons. And once you start watching one, I don't know if you know how YouTube works. It'll just keep shoving them down your throat for the rest of your life. It's amazing.
It's true. We've noticed that as we've developed our own YouTube page recently. And
The algorithm knows all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks you guys so much for joining. Mike, Hailey, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully we can have some more collaborations in the future. It's kind of fun to have the Northlandia Historia teaming up here.
I would love it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
And thank you for joining us on this venture into Northlandia. To read the article for this week's column, visit duluthnewstribune.com/topics/Northlandia. You can find all the episodes of Northlandia on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to support us, consider becoming a subscriber of the Duluth News Tribune at duluthnewstribune.com/subscribe. Join us again next week and discover the extraordinary stories that you just might miss if you're not in the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return, here in Northlandia.